Welcome. User Management Roadmap. I'm excited to share with you our vision for the future and some of the features that we're currently working on. We're going to make a lot of forward-looking statements in this presentation. Please make purchasing decisions on currently available products and services. My name is Larry Tung. I'm part of our user access team, and I do a lot of stuff within our record access and sharing space. I'm joined by
Hey, I'm Mahesh Sholingappa. I'm the product manager for permissions and authorization.
Now today we're going to talk about the new features that we've been working on. A lot of it is based on your feedback. We want to make it easier to secure your org. We also have a lot of investments in setup with Agentforce. We see this as a way to really turbocharge your productivity. And finally, we want to make it easier in terms of making it your org following the principle of least privilege. And what that means is we're going to add more granular controls. Let's first talk about the new features that we're about to release. Now, there are a bunch of new features. I want to just highlight two of them, and then we'll go through the rest of them. First one's on list view sharing. Now, if you give one of your users manage public list views, they can actually manage all the list views in the whole org. And for many of you, you've told us that's not acceptable. And that's how we got 36,000 points on the ideas exchange on this one. So what do we do? Well, here we have Dave. He's a sales manager, and he's someone you trust. You're saying, OK, Dave knows his business well. He knows exactly what fields to put on his list view. He doesn't need to hit me up on Slack or open a ticket and tell me, hey, create a list view that does the following. So we're now going to be able to grant manage shared list views in summer release. And once he has that permission, he can share a list view with his team. Now, let's say maybe you don't trust the team, right? Like, oh, they might mess it up. So currently, the way it works is once Dave has that access to share list views, his team cannot edit that list view. Now, for some, you actually trust your users. They're going to do the right thing. So if that's the case, we also have a new org preference. It's called shared list view editing. And what that does is when Dave shares that list view with his team members can also edit the shared list views. So I see a lot of cameras up, so I hope you're excited. Hopefully this really saves you a bunch of time. Another one we're working on, and this one we're just starting to evaluate, like how much effort it is. So hopefully by Dreamforce, we'll see maybe this is coming very soon. So there's two ideas here, and they sum up to 13,000 points. And that is when a record owner changes, we deleted the manual shares. We did that for security reasons, and a lot of you told us, don't do that, right? So we want to give you a preference so that you can turn this functionality off if that's what you prefer. The other one, a lot of developers, ISVs have asked, hey, we really want to be able to create custom row causes on standard objects. We can already do it for custom objects. So what gives? And so that's another thing we're working on, because that will help with auditing, troubleshooting, and just ease of use. All right, so those are the two I wanted to highlight. There's also other enhancements we're making. I'll go through this a little bit fast, but this is where maybe you check the release notes if you're interested in one of these. Two of them I want to highlight are already available. So just recently in spring 26, you ever have a administrator or developer or maybe one of your power users try to add a user to a queue, and then they got this another operation in progress? That's what happened in actually one of the employees, and they're getting very frustrated. They're like, I tried to add a user many times, and they kept getting this error message. So we enhanced the error message. It now tells you what user is doing something else that blocks you. Another thing we made that's now available to all customers as well is that we changed the sharing recalculation when you're making certain group or role changes. So in the past, we always had these synchronous operations. But now we're going to detect, depending on your org shape, if you have these owner-based sharing rules, we can actually calculate these asynchronously. And for some of you, I've already been seeing the performance on this, and it's like, whew, it's like saving tons of hours where you would have been waiting, and now it just finishes. The other things I want to share with you, 3 more enhancements, and these are all coming in summer 26. One is that when you added a record to a queue, depending on how you set it up, it would actually notify all the users above those direct queue members, basically everybody in the role hierarchy. And so we, Salesforce, had this knowledge article that said, well, if you want to work around it, here's the following steps. And some of you were like, dude, this is not a good solution. So it actually got 2,000 points on Ideas Exchange, and we fixed this now. So there's an option on the queue, you can now uncheck it, and it won't notify those folks. Also, in terms of whenever you're editing permissions on a permission set or profile, in the past, as you granted access to a certain permission, we just pulled in the dependencies. And for some of you, you're like, hey, it would have been nice if you had told me when I assign this permission, it also grants the following. And so now we make it a lot clearer in the UI as you're making those changes that here are the dependent permissions you're also granting. So that's also coming in summer. And then one more. As you're making changes, I know we told you to move to permission sets and permission set groups. But if you happen to still be doing stuff on profile, if you have shield or event monitoring, when you're making those permission changes on profiles, they'll now be included in the permission set events. So that's like a lot of the enhancements we're making spring, summer. But, in order to really improve your experience, we know we need to double down, and that's what's set up with Agentforce. And so I'm excited to now turn it over to Mahesh, as he's going to talk about what the setup agent is going to be able to do for you.
Thanks, Larry, and hello again, everyone. It's so great to be here with this community that truly powers the Salesforce ecosystem. Every day, you are the ones who manage users, secure data, and make sure everybody has everything they need to be successful. You mastered all these complex workflows through your years of expertise. But we also know that you're looking for ways to go even faster, looking for ways to maybe spend less time on the manual clicks of tasks and more time on the strategic work that truly moves the needle for your company. And that's exactly why I'm super excited to talk to you about the evolution of user access and management. We've taken these core daily tasks that you guys do and set up audit trail query, user access management, user management, and brought it into the conversational world of setup with Agentforce. So let's see how setup with Agentforce turbocharges or supercharges your productivity. Like I said, we're focusing on the 3 pillars that would truly define your daily success. This is basically some of the work that you would spend most of the time doing manually. Setup audit trail query, access management, and user management. Let's start with the first pillar, the setup audit trail query experience. So many of you have told us in past Dreamforces and TDX that the setup audit trail query experience has basically been the same for the past 20 years. You've asked us, hey, can you give us a way of maybe querying the audit trail within Salesforce? Maybe I don't want to download the file and open it in a spreadsheet application, whatever, right? And your repeated requests is what has gotten this feature up our priority list. But let's, seeing is believing, right? So let's see how we can do this in a conversation. Now, querying a setup audit trail is as fast as asking a question. Just ask the agent, show me all the changes made by Mahesh in the last 7 days. And then that's it. Let the agent do all the work for you. Within seconds, it queries a setup audit trail, brings you back all the relevant log lines in a very consumable list view that's so familiar to you. Now that we've unlocked history, oh, actually, one more thing. This is a net new feature, by the way. It is hot off the press. This went into the beta release in March. Now that we've unlocked history, let's take a look at how we can use this to troubleshoot access issues. User access management is evolving from a click-heavy operation to a conversational one. You've heard this before, probably in a lot of sessions yesterday, maybe even before that. In past query surveys, you've told us 20% of admin time is spent in troubleshooting user access. In bringing troubleshooting user access and configuration of access management into setup with Agentforce, this is our attempt to give you that 1 day back. One of the most common support cases that admins get today is, hey, why can't I access this record? Or why can't I access this object? And let's see how we can solve that. Diagnosing access issues with setup with Agentforce is as simple as having a conversation. Let's ask the agent, why does Harry Long not have or can't edit the brand alliance object? Let the agent figure out why he cannot. The agent comes back and says, yeah, he doesn't have edit access. At this point, maybe you want to know what permission sets grant access to this object. Doing this step manually, by the way, is you have to go into each permission set and figure out if this access is associated with it or not. Let the agent do all of that work that you would have had to do manually. It comes back with a list of permission sets that actually grant access. At this point, all you need to do is assign the permission set and be done. And just like that, you were not only able to troubleshoot the access issues, but also fix it without ever needing to leave the chat interface. Knowing about current access is great, but what about the real crises is when somebody comes to you and says, hey, I had access to this yesterday, but I don't seem to be able to access it anymore. What changed? And answering this question usually involves querying the setup audit trail. Now that the agent can query the setup audit trail, we can bring the historical context as well as the current access, bridge the gap between that to be able to exactly pinpoint when the permission was dropped. So just ask the agent exactly what you're thinking. Harry Long had access to this object yesterday, but not anymore. What changed? The agent not only brings you the relevant log lines, but also gives you a pretty neat summary of how this change could have caused the access discrepancies. That was a lot of troubleshooting. Now that we've solved troubleshooting or made it easier, let's take a look at the users behind these permissions and how to manage them. Your daily routine tasks, user management tasks like edit user, view user, soon create a user, reset password, all of these can now be solved with a single utterance, with a single command in simple natural language instructions. Speaking of routine, let's talk about a community favorite, clone user, which has over 12,000 ideas exchange points associated with it. Clone user is now your fast forward button to onboarding a new user. You can clone a new user or onboard a new user with a single utterance, specify a few required fields like name, user ID, email, click on clone and hit submit. Let the agent do all of the work that you would have had to do manually. Again, in past surveys, some admins told us that it takes upwards of 45 minutes to an hour to clone a single user. This is our attempt to give you that 1 hour back, per user, by the way. Let's see what all the agent was able to clone. It was able to clone permission set assignments, public group membership, queue membership. Every permission that needs to be cloned, the agent handles the cloning with 100% accuracy. Clone user, this is a roadmap session. You might be thinking, why am I talking about clone user? Because it's been there since Pilot and Dreamforce. You all gave us some excellent feedback about the feature. And one of those was, hey, what if I don't want to clone? What if I want to create a new user? Maybe I don't want to clone the assignments just yet. What do I do then? So coming soon, we're going to have a create new user experience as well. Again, with a single utterance, never needing to do anything manually or click. And this is going to be the new UX for the create new user, where you just like how you would see it in setup today. Speaking of coming soon, let's see what else is coming up in the pipeline in the upcoming releases. This is our roadmap for the upcoming beta and GA and post-GA. As you can see, it has a lot of features in there. It has a lot of productivity boosters for admins. It has a lot of features that's going to save you a lot of time. I'm not going to walk through each one of them, but you can take a look at this. One of the highlights of the spring release, or the June release, is our summaries feature. Take, for example, permission set summary or a profile summary. Why is this important? There are so many things that you'll want to do on a daily basis that you probably want a quick answer to. Right? You don't want to get into a click marathon and try to figure this out. Things like, tell me what are the high-risk permissions that are part of this permission set, or how many users is this assigned to? You want to know this right away, right? And because you're doing this repeatedly for so many tasks. Now, we can just ask the agent, or pretty soon, we can just ask the agent that. And the agent comes back with exactly what you're asking. It comes back with a list of high-risk permissions. It also gives you information like the number of users assigned. You gave us feedback saying this becomes important when you're updating a permission set because you'd want to know the blast radius, right? Maybe you make decisions differently if 3 users assigned to it versus 1,000 users. Quickly identifying high-risk permissions is great, but sometimes you really want to just do a side-by-side compare. You want to compare your users, the access for your users. You want to compare their assignments. Whoa. Sorry, the screen just disappeared. You want to compare their assignments. Pretty soon, in the upcoming release, we will have a full-on side-by-side comparison framework. Like I said, you'd be able to compare their assignments, permission set group assignments, permission set assignments, your permission comparison, object permissions. Look how beautiful that CRUD access comparison is. Your FSL comparison. Do you see everything? Okay. FSL comparison. User permissions. Why stop there, right? Like I said, we want this to be a framework. You should be able to use this for public group comparison, your queues comparison, compare between your permission sets, compare your profiles, compare between permission set and profiles. Whatever your comparison needs are, this would be the feature for you. We want this to be the Swiss Army knife in your admin toolkit. Whew, that was long. I think I need some water, but I can keep talking about all the other features that are coming up in the upcoming release, but I probably need another 30 minutes for that. So there was a session yesterday. If you're interested in knowing more about how setup with Agentforce is really turbocharges your productivity, Larry, myself, and Anusha went through Simplify User Access with Setup with Agentforce. Again, if you missed it, don't worry about it. It was recorded, and it's going to be available on Salesforce+. Let's summarize. We saw all the new features, the new core features, as well as quality of life features that are coming up in the upcoming release. We saw how Setup with Agentforce can truly supercharge your productivity. Now, let's take a look at granular access control and how we can further enhance the security posture for your orgs. Bring this home, Larry.
Thank you. Thank you, Mahesh. And I'm really excited to talk to you guys about more granular access controls. In fact, you've given us quite a bit of feedback. Some of your feedback is probably like, why haven't you done this yet, Larry? Some of these are hard problems, and it takes some time. So I hear you. So criteria-based sharing rules, you want us to support lookup. And many of you voted, 28,000 points, a lot of comments. And then when you grant access for certain use cases, you want to ensure it doesn't roll up the role hierarchy. That's to protect that sensitive data. And I thought my team and I, hey, we had a great idea. We were going to solve this for you in 2021. And it didn't go as well as I thought. You actually even voted more points now, telling me, hey, restriction rules, it was helpful, but needs more objects. And the criteria doesn't match sharing rules. So yeah, I hear you. So we have some work to do still. And so I was thinking maybe we need to introduce something new, or I don't know, something with attribute-based access control. And for some of you, at least myself originally, I was like, what is that, right? And so it's a term used in security space, and it's talking about specifically 4 areas. With restriction rules and sharing sets, we actually do have some form of attribute-based access control. So for some of you, you've already used it in a sense. With attribute-based access control, or ABAC, there's 4 things. One is the user, or the, what I'll call the subject. And then for our use cases, a lot of times we're just talking about a specific record, but more generically, they call it a resource. And then there's also environment. So perhaps environment could be the location you're logging in from. And then what action should we take? For sharing and record access, it's all about read and edit, but there could be more. So I'm kind of laying this, kind of defining ABAC as we want to be able to use it in other places as well. But let's take a look at a specific example. So let's say we have a Canadian company. They're doing a lot of work in public sector. So in this specific scenario, they need their employees that are working on sensitive cases to be Canadian citizens and to have an active security clearance. They also want this policy to apply only when the customer is public sector, and they're also in Canada. And we have this requirement that employee, they have to be working in Canada. If they go on vacation, let's say they go to Mexico, nope, you shouldn't have access. And then we have to either grant, edit, or read, depending on the situation. Now, one thing that you might catch from here is I hard-coded everything to Canada. What if you have the same policies in multiple countries, right? Like, you don't want to create a policy per country, do you? I know, I kind of force you to do that with sharing rules. You have to put a public group, and you have multiple public groups, so we're going to fix that, right? The restriction rules had something like that where you compared the user's attributes to the record you were looking at. So that's kind of an example of where we want to go so that you could write one policy and it applies to many, many scenarios. I want to show you another use case of where I see kind of these record level security policies to be very helpful. Now, you're familiar with submitting things to your HR team, and what if there's sensitive information? So as an employee, I should have limited access. Maybe I can add some comments. And I trust that the case owner is probably going to have full access to that record, minus maybe a few things. That case owner might need some help. So maybe they have a team that has read or edit access. But everybody else, think about it, everybody else, they should not have access, right? So if you're in the role hierarchy above the case owner, no access. What about role hierarchy above the submitter? No access, right? This is sensitive information we're talking about. And if you have view all data, modify all data because you're a system administrator or developer, no, right? Sensitive information. So what are we going to do? So that's kind of the policy I want to be able to create for you guys. And one more. You also gave us a bunch of feedback. This one was an idea called criteria-based field level security. And I even got feedback from some customers, and they told me, Larry, we never asked you about this because, frankly, we never thought you'd ever do it. So, yeah. Well, I'm thinking about trying to do this, and the scenario is quite straightforward, right? So earlier, or just think about a scenario where I have an employee named Sean, and field level security set for Sean, and as an employee, he has a certain field level security, but actually, he's also the support engineer in the same org. So field level security, right, applies regardless of whatever persona or job role he has for that specific record. It doesn't matter, right? So we want to be able to create policies that can say, well, when Sean's the employee, he has access to a certain set of fields, maybe certain read or edit access. But when he's the support engineer, he has a different set of access on his field. So in some sense, it's a policy that kind of overrides what field level security is doing. And so then that way, we can really secure your orgs easily by just creating these policies. And so you're probably wondering, okay, when's this coming, right? So this is my goal, right? Forward-looking statements. So with securing records, I'm hoping to have this in your hands spring 27. And then for fields, the following release. But we're hard at work right now to try to get you guys this stuff next year. Now, I mentioned attribute-based access control a ton of times, and I was thinking about how else can we apply this? What other areas? And I was thinking about some of your feedback. One, we really need to solve the super permission problem, right? You're telling me, hey, modify all data, view all data, customize applications, all these other things that people can do. So you need to work on that. So that's something Mahesh, Cheryl's in the audience. We're going to figure this out, right? So we're going to talk to other teams, figure out how we're going to decouple the super permission problem. But even if you decouple it, then what? You've kind of given us feedback, customize application. Wow, you can customize so much stuff. Maybe that's not exactly what you want. Maybe you have a power user that you want, or you call it a delegated admin, different names, right? But that user should perhaps only focus on a specific department. Maybe that user should only have access to the custom fields and be able to modify sales-related objects. So wouldn't it be great if we could create a policy that then would say, well, because you're a sales power user, customized applications only scope down to a certain set of things that you've marked sales. So we'll have to give you some way to tag the related things that are called sales and then give that power user the right access. So that's one thing we're thinking about. We would love to hear more of your feedback and use cases and if we're moving in the right direction. The other piece is metadata. Like when you have a case and you want to assign it to a queue. Voila, you see all the queues in the whole org. Isn't that awesome? Okay, maybe not, right? Maybe you're saying, well, depending on the person's role, they only need to assign cases to these queues. So how do we then give you the right access for metadata? You may have other use cases as well. I won't enumerate all the ones that we've heard from you, but that's another thing we're thinking about. And if you're thinking this use case is really important to you, then let me know as well. So right now, the priorities are what I just showed you, securing the records, securing the fields, and the timelines on these two, a little bit more unclear. I'll keep it at that. But I would love to hear your feedback. Are we moving in the right direction? Are we really going to meet your needs? I want to thank all of you guys for coming and just hearing what we have planned on our roadmap. And there is a mic in the center of the room. And I would love to just invite you guys to come up for questions. But I also ask, please fill in the survey. It helps us be able to ask our events team, hey, we want to come again and share all this wonderful information with you guys. So we appreciate all the feedback, whether it's things that we covered in this slide or things you want us to talk about in a future event.